Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you may be. Good afternoon from here in Rome, Italy. Very happy to be again with all of you in the Atmia Sangha, our weekly gathering, ISTAGOSTHI. So it has been a very interesting week. Today we share a few pictures from our experience so far, but it's only half of the experience so far. There was too much to share in one single album. So we just share a little bit of our celebration on Radhastami. A few days ago, we had a very nice meeting here with the devotees, talking. Of course, the lectures have been in Spanish, as you may have realized, with Italian translation. So sorry for the only English-speaking ones, but the Spanish audience is happy. So be empathic, please. So we had very nice celebration. My first time here in Italy. So getting to know some of the local community, although I know some of the devotees, of course. So we've been celebrating we have some pre-Radhastami Katha, reflecting on Sri Radha, reflecting on her role as love personified. What does it mean? What's love? How to reach a coherent definition of love, so we can a definition that works out and that is relatable, relevant in day to day. In that connection, we also have some local pilgrimages, so to say, here in Rome, which is kind of an open air museum. Wherever you go, there is some art, some culture, some relic from the past. Not necessarily all of them absolutely transcendental, so to say, but all of them teaching about the history of humanity. And in our attempt to integrate humanity with transcendence, is always good to remain aware of all the potential of humanity, the brightest one, the darkest one, all of them happening in the same place sometimes, right? In a few blocks from each other. So that has been an interesting meditation. Going to the Vatican City, to the museum there. So yeah, despite the not so transcendental relics that may be found there, some gifts, quote unquote, gifts taken from other cultures. Also, there is lots of things that are very inspiring in terms of devotion and how many things can be got for inspired by God, inspired by, in this case, mostly, of course, Jesus and Christianity, and how much incredible pieces of art and culture can become manifested in incredible temples and churches and paintings and sculptures, and how by witnessing all that amount of evidence, if you will, by having a pratyaksha or a first-hand experience of those works, naturally, one becomes very naturally drawn toward the divine. No, it's a very interesting way of proving that faith is real. No, I mean, witnessing works inspired by the divine, works of art inspired by the divine in an overwhelming quantity and quality. It's very reassuring, very confirming in terms of the existence of something transcendental. If all this stuff is absolutely unreal and we are all delusional, believing in something divine, it's not possible that all the things that I've been seeing these days it's just coming from a delusional collective mentality, so to say. No, so it has been very powerful in that connection. And after that, we traveled for a day to another section in Italy, still in Rome. So we had another gathering, mostly entertaining questions and answers, talking about sadhu sangha and other topics with a nice group of almost 40 devotees. We'll be sharing some pictures these days. And the next day, which is yesterday, the next day of that program, we went to Assisi, to the local town of St. Francis. So that was a parikrama unto itself, very moving, very powerful. Just one day, that was not enough at all. I just needed one day to remain seated at St. Francis Samadhi place. We all felt that. That was the first place we entered, and we felt, should we go anywhere else or should we stay the whole day here, basically? But well, we went to other places as well. But yeah, minimum you're required 3-4 days a week to do justice and properly spend time with the different places where he was where he was born, where he died, where the tomb is there, where he will walk in the forest, where different of his brothers and sisters will perform their pastimes, if you want to use that word, and so many other interesting things that, of course, being properly familiar with St. Francis' life and example is moving, is touching. Just being in a place that is saturated with the presence of one single person that was madly in love of God, basically, right? At every moment. No, his practice was being madly in love of God, and whatever he did was a testament to that. Whether he was talking with a bird, whether he was done just lying on the ground looking at the stars. There's one statue that illustrates that. Whether he was preaching, whether he was dealing with the leper, whether he was praying, whether he was living in community, everything was an extension of being passionately in love with God. So that had a powerful, impactful effect. Not in, hopefully not in the form of any neurosis or discouragement, but just in a healthy assessment and a healthy self-inquiry in terms of, okay, where I am myself in terms of becoming mad in love for Krishna, not imitating anyone, but just, we know that's the goal, right? The goal is to naturally fall in love with the divine and with everything as an extension of the divine, and our path is that of raga bhakti, or passionate love, passionate pursuit of bhakti. So where we are on this journey, so we're talking with Bhakti Rasa the other day, are we mere tourists on the spiritual journey, or we are actually actual pilgrims of the bhakti journey? No, I'm just doing tourism, or I'm doing pilgrimage. No? From which place I'm walking the path. And of course, the answer generally may be probably a mixture of both. It doesn't have to be black and white. But how to increase my pilgrimagehood, so to say, in that case. Now, how to become less and less of a tourist in this sacred path, in this sacred journey. So yeah, it has been impactful, still ruminating and processing all that one single day of dense, profound input. So yeah, I'm just coming now from a meeting with Srila Bhaktivichar Vishnu Maharaj, who is also a special Vaishnava elder friend of mine as well. He's disciple of Bhakti Vaibhapuri Maharaj. So we will be making some program together on Monday for the appearance day of Bhakti Thakur. And in a few hours here, today and tomorrow, we will have 2 more meetings talking on mostly of humanizing our spiritual practice and Krishna's unconditional love and all those topics that you already heard so many times, and still we need to hear so many more times. So no wonder I may be talking about that today. Who knows? I need to hear them so many more times. So that's a brief recap of this week. I hope you had also a very blessed celebration of Radhastami and a very blessed celebration of life, celebration of each day as it unfolds in this journey, hopefully a pilgrimage one. So again, very happy to be in your Sangha, and let's move to our ISTAGOSTHI, no? And in terms of questions, whatever questions you may have, whatever themes you may have. As we were telling the other day, one more point before going to the question, because the other day we had an ISTAGOSTHI 2 days ago. We were introducing the notion of questions and answers, and basically emphasizing how life in itself is a question that begs to be answered at every moment. No? To be in a human form of life, to embrace the potential of human consciousness entails a question in itself, an existential question. Of course, who am I? What is everything? How do I relate? What's the purpose of life? One question after another, how to find meaning and purpose. And it's not so much like Viktor Frankl will say in his famous Man's Search for Meaning. It's not so much what do I expect from life, but what life expects from me. So what's the question being asked to me by reality itself? It's constantly I'm being asked in a healthy way, in a loving way, but I'm being asked a question, and I'm being invited to reply to that question in a particular way. And of course, the question is, in one sense always the same, but it's taking different forms. In one sense, we could say the question is Krishna already loves us, and the question is, do you love me? Do you want to love me? And Krishna says Om to us, says yes to us, and then the question is, would you like to say Om, yes, in return? And there, in so many ways, the same question comes, and in so many ways we can reply to the question. In so many ways, we say no to the question also. But anyhow, life in itself is a journey of questions and answers, and not only our current human odyssey, but ultimately in the zenith of existence, let's say when a jiva, a soul, attains divine love, jiva enters the divine play of Bhagavan, let's put it that way, serving in the Leela. Let's take it to the highest possible peaks of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. One has the chance of serving intimately Shri Radha and Krishna on their daily rendezvous, to give an example. But still, there are questions and answers to be questions to be answered on a daily basis in eternity. Because as we know, for everyone in Vrindavan, at least especially those who are aware of their illicit, quote-unquote, paramour affairs between Radha and Krishna, the question is how to get the divine couple together every single day. Because every single day, the dynamics brought forward by Yogamaya are also separation to nourish the eventual union. But for the eventual union to happen, everyone in Vrindavan, consciously or unconsciously, are wondering how to bring that union in one way or another. So that's the question, how to make Radha and Krishna become together, because they are dying in separation from each other. As I'd like to say sometimes, no matter who we are, how insignificant we are, the wonderful arrangement of Yogamaya, of Bhakti Devi, is that we small jivas, ultimately in eternity, on a daily basis, we will be saving the life of God. No? They have so much love for each other, they are dying in separation from each other, and our participation in Lila will be to make the arrangement favorable for the reunion of the divine couple. So nobody dies, and nobody dies ever, fortunately. But there are those questions every day: how to get Radha and Krishna together, how to keep them alive, how to make the arrangements in such a way that those who shouldn't know about this continue not to know, and so on and so forth. So there's so many questions and so many answers required for the whole thing to be successful. That's the daily unfolding of the eternal Lila. So if that's made of such a degree of questioning and answering, no wonder that here, where we are as a preparation to the realm, we're also trying to train our hearts in a proper way, presenting questions, presenting answers that are as relevant as possible. And even if the question seems basic and superficial in comparison to those questions coming in the Lila, still we should have the proper perspective to integrate and relate one thing with the other. It's all the same bhakti project. So whatever questions we have, we need to sincerely resolve and are relevant for us in the here and now. That's the foundation we need to be constructing today, at least, or ultimately asking these ultimately more relevant questions in the realm of Lila. So in this way, we will be progressing from our stages as sadhakas closer and closer to perfection through questions and answers. That was my main point. We can conceive the whole journey, the whole bhakti journey, in terms of questions and answers. And the real question is, which are the questions relevant to my particular chapter of my journey? And which are the answers I need for this chapter of the journey to move forward to the next chapter of the journey? And I will move forward to the next chapter by receiving the necessary answer to whatever necessary questions I had, and so on and so forth. That's how we can frame progress, right, in terms of questions and answers. So anyhow, some thoughts that came now, since we talked about a few days ago in connection to what we are supposed to be doing these days, on a weekly basis, a day like today. So let's say I'm seeing a few hands raised, and I've heard that there are some technical difficulties with Zoom and the raised hands going down and all that stuff. So feel free to raise your hands all the necessary times you require. Let's begin with the first raised hand, which is from Bhadra from New Zealand.
Haribol Maharaj, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so happy to be here. It's like water, a drop of water in the desert, the Sangha. This is what my heart has been looking for quite some years. And I've kind of been thinking, am I odd? Am I the oddity? Now I realize I'm definitely not.
We're all odd. We just need to find people that are as odd as we are. That's basically the important point.
So many things that you've been saying in the last couple, in your intro, in the last few minutes, have related to my experiences of the last couple of days. So it's kind of I'm experiencing the mystic nature of things at the moment. And the question that I had also, it's been on my mind for a while, especially since listening to you, but I also had the question prior to that about people who are not in a tradition that we, or at least that I, have grown up with to understand as being bona fide and authorized, like a bona fide sampradaya, where there's a line of pure masters with an unchanged message, not just a spoken message, but a Shakti which they emanate, the pure people.
Mm-hmm.
How so many others, like such as you mentioned, St. Francis of Assisi, and you obviously felt his Shakti. And there have been so many others over the years who have not been from such a tradition that I understand to be a bona fide tradition from God.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, my question is, it's said that the living entities are wandering up and down the universe, experiencing all their different karma, until by the grace of Krishna they meet one of his pure representatives.
Mm-hmm.
And and then the bhakti, of course, comes. So I guess the question, there's two things I'm wanting a clearer understanding on. How do we define a pure devotee? And how is the bhakti lata bij awakened, other than with one? And I'm just wondering, in connection with people like St. Francis of Assisi and so many others over the ages who have obviously attained quite a deep level of love for God, how has that happened? If you follow my question.
Yeah, I think I followed the questions. Of course, big part of my answer is the first book I wrote, which is Inherent or Inherited, Bhakti in the Jiva according to Gaudiya Vedanta, which is a book that basically revolves around how bhakti comes to our lives, right? So it's a whole treatise on that, basically, on the importance of sadhu sangha and how, from the perspective of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, we are blessed with the presence of bhakti and so on. I won't say more than that in that connection. The book is available there, so to say. So that's a publicity section here. But so remind me your first question. Sorry, got totally lost. I mean, I get the second one, St. Francis.
Oh, it was just in connection with how jivas, other than those who have an obvious guru parampara.
No. You told me, how do I define a pure devotee? That was the question.
Oh, yeah, okay. How do
Maybe
we
you
define
forgot the question.
Because if these people have not had, if people such as, we'll use St. Francis of Assisi as an example, if he has not had an obvious pure devotee guru, and who also had his own guru, then how has bhakti come to him?
Yeah.
Because it was also said that bhakti gives bhakti, or we can only get bhakti from bhakti.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, I cannot give any, how to say, conclusive verdict. I cannot tell you, this is how it happened for St. Francis. I'm just visualizing what happened inside his heart, whatever. 100 years ago, we can just make assumptions. But what's not an assumption is the testimony that his life was about passionate love of God, and that's really undeniable. So whether we know how that happened, and again, we in our tradition will embrace the concept of previous lifetimes. So that's also an opportunity, especially in the case of someone like him, who had very, very sudden conversion after leading a arguably mundane, ordinary life, right? I mean, he was basically living a very, if you want to call it, materialistic lifestyle, not interested in the divine, and being just like a young boy enjoying the pleasures of the world, so to say. And he had such a sudden conversion, and he became like mad from one day to another in love of God. So naturally, that of course, so many things can be the reason for that. Again, I cannot just put a finger and say this is what happened, because I don't know. But one thing we could say is previous lifetimes, of course, of bhakti samskars, and that's in the scripture many times. Rupa Goswami speaks about that in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, of Vaishnavas receiving bhakti, in this lifetime exhibiting bhakti in a very natural way, apparently without connection with the guru, with the sadhu, but carrying bhakti from previous lifetimes. So that's a possibility. Of course, that Krishna gives himself through the bhakta, extends his mercy through the Vaishnavas, as we speak about in our tradition, doesn't mean that he cannot extend any mercy independently of that. No, I mean, we should be very careful not to also make like fixed, rigid rules in this connection. Like, okay, Krishna is just can only give mercy through the bhakta, and he cannot, or through the whatever. I mean, again, Krishna is in the heart. No? Whether you want to speak on Paramatma or Krishna, remember, it's the same person. So God is in everyone's heart, and he's Chaitya Guru. No? So as a Chaitya Guru, also we always are speaking about this idea of how God is trying to create the most possible positive influence possible in the life of every soul. So that's part of his arrangement, if we want to use that word, no? And of course, part of the arrangement will be the crossing with sadhus, with Vaishnavas. But again, no? In some cases, we shouldn't be like that rigid in terms of, okay, if they are not from a bona fide parampara, which again, the question then comes, what's a bona fide parampara? Or what's a bona fide lineage that transmits spiritual knowledge? I will be very careful not to say just Gaudiya Vaishnavism is a bona fide lineage. That will seem pretty obvious that I'm being a total fanatic if I'm saying that. Hopefully that sounds pretty obvious to you. Or even if I say
surely that's really what my question is.
yeah, if I say only Vaishnava lineages are bona fide, and of course you have all this quarrel among even Vaishnavas that your parampara is not bona fide, your parampara, your Diksha line is a mess, is interrupted, is not unbroken in physical terms, and therefore you are not bona fide, and then there comes the counter curse, an argument, and you are not bona fide because of this and that, and you are not bona fide because of the. And many times we just end up creating wars, at least on social media, on who is bona fide, who is not bona fide. And it becomes kind of an ego thing, right? Like, okay, who is the bona fide, who is not the bona fide, and how to be with the bona fide ones. And it seems more like being in the correct group, like external participation. If I'm physically or officially affiliated with this group, which is bona fide, by the way, of course, I'm bona fide. And of course, that doesn't mean anything. You can be connected to the topmost spiritual lineage with the greatest Mahabhagavat guru on planet Earth and be an absolute idiot, basically. Right? Being spiritually evasive, bypassing, hypocrite, very needy, very cheating yourself, with all respect and compassion. I use the word idiot, not to be bully on anyone. So because again, someone can tell me, okay, Maharaj, Christianity is not the bona fide lineage because they don't have the system of parampara and they just worship Jesus and that's a form of Brithvikism, and therefore non-Christian mystic has the real thing. And I was like, I'm not so sure about that. Or let's be more punctual, I totally disagree with that. So there are different ways, different ways in which God reaches humanity, inspires the hearts. I'm not with this canceling the concept of parampara, which of course makes a lot of sense, but also what's parampara? Especially in our tradition, we'll emphasize this notion of siksha parampara and the current coming by inspired souls that may not necessarily be connected physically in an unbroken physical connection, but nonetheless become inspired in time as the inspiration becomes lacking in time. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, yoga nashta parampara. In time, sometimes let's put it this way, the live wire or the current of revelation becomes interrupted. And therefore I come again, age after age, sambhavami yuge yuge, ebam parampara praptami mam rajarsa yobidu sakaleniha mahata jogonasta parampara. Sakalenita mahata. In time, sometimes the inspiration, the current becomes unavailable for whatever reason. And in time comes a current of inspiration, whether that person received that from their guru in previous lifetimes, from God directly, by looking at a tree, we don't know. Remember, Sanatana Goswami said, if you address a blade of grass as it is, you attain full perfection. No? So probably the point with that is, probably for some, I'm making too much of it. I'm making the definition of Vaishnava too broad here. But I mean, in potential, every soul is a Vaishnava. That's is a servant of God. So if you associate with everything and everyone for who they are in potential, for all that they can be, in one sense, you can say you are having sadhu sangha in every possible direction. Of course, who has that capacity? That's another conversation, and that's why we emphasize guru, someone who instructs you directly and clearly, and so on and so forth. But in principle, we could say sadhu sangha is available everywhere. In every atom, in your heart is Chaitya Guru. To associate with the Guru is sadhu sangha, and every atom is Krishna. He's Jagat Guru, the topmost of all sadhu sangha. Every living entity is a Vaishnava in potential. So in potential, everyone is a Vaishnava if we have the eyes to see. So there are different ways. No, for me, things are more broad and complex. Therefore, that what our simplistic reductionistic mind sometimes wants to make, like in terms of, okay, who is bona fide, who is not bona fide. No, even we find in different traditions that sometimes are technically called apa sampradaya by some of our practitioners, there has been some deviation from the norm, if you want to put it that way, but in time that deviation was corrected, or some great souls appeared there beyond the deviation, so to say. So there are many possibilities, many nuances. No, so again, in our tradition we have a particular way in which knowledge comes to us in parampara, but again, that we emphasize parampara doesn't mean that we overemphasize parampara to the point that we lose sight of the point I made, that we have sadhu sangha available everywhere. So we say many times, no? Gurus are everywhere. So let's say the Maharaj is saying, our goal is to enter into the land of gurus. So everyone is guru there. Everything is guru there. No? There you will be just, he will say, walking with your head on the ground and with your feet up, no? Because you will be revering everything on your path, because everything is guru. So in principle, that's if we have proper Krishna consciousness, we are there. So in the case of Saint Francis, for me, it's clear that he was finding, I mean, he was talking to everyone and everything. No? That seems, from a clinical point of view, seems like delusional. No? How are you calling the moon and the sun, your brother and sister, and you're talking to the birds? Well, because he was relating to them for who they were. Again, going back to Sanatana Goswami, you relate to a blade of grass for what it is. And there you are, at home. So he had that vision. How he attained that vision, again, we cannot point to exact details. And we shouldn't be, again, we shouldn't force the situation to say, oh, in his previous life, he was a Gaudiya Vaishnava. No? Because to begin with, there was no Gaudiya Vaishnavism on planet Earth at that time. so on this planet Earth, at least. So we shouldn't try to, again, make everyone fit into our own box. And we should just be open and marveling at how the grace of God and the lives of the saints are real and expressing themselves in so much variety. It reminds me this famous quote that I shared in Radical Personalism, Bhaktivinoda Thakur saying, when you go to a mosque, to a church, to a temple of whatever tradition, you just marvel at the way and at the unique way they are expressing their faith. Just marvel, just appreciate that, just be nourished in your own path, in your own faith, at how they are doing what they are doing. So it's basically the same thing we are talking here. How this saint in this tradition attained love of God, how they became converted, I may not know. They may not follow the same exact system, if you want to use that word in one sense, but it's clear, it's real. So I can marvel at that. I can appreciate that. I can really become inspired. But I don't know, if you read the life of Saint Francis, you don't become inspired. You're a terminal case. I'm not saying you become inspired to live your tradition, become a Franciscan, but your heart must be touched because it's too real. No, and I'm just talking about him because the question is about him, and I've been there recently, but we can apply that to many other personalities from our tradition, from other traditions. If you read the story of Srila Prabhupada, I mean, how you won't be moved by that? You cannot say, that's fake, that's fiction, that's a nice story, but it's just a story. No, it's not a story. No, that's fiction. No, we are fiction, and that's reality, right? So every time we are confronted with the lives of these personalities, we are confronted with how reality looks like. Looks like if you really live reality as it is. And of course, that creates the big contrast of the fiction I'm still in living my own life. Again, not to get neurotic, but just to have that healthy dose of contrast, to be reminded, to be humbled by the lives of the pure devotees, how life is supposed to be from the healthiest possible place, madness and divine love, profound longing, profound passion, in a very natural way. So that's basically what a pure devotee is. You were asking about how to define a pure devotee. Of course, we can give so many official definitions of that, and of course we have our own definition. How to define a pure devotee? Well, it's the same definition of how to define pure devotion. When we know how to define pure devotion, whomever embraces that is a pure devotee, or as much as someone embraces that is a pure devotee. And pure devotion is defined by Rupa Goswami, Nyavilasita Sunyam Gyan Karmadhyanabritam Anukulena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhakti. To have God as the main object of our affection and passionate love, but to understand that everything else in existence is not separated from God, and therefore that affection, that feeling extends to everything and everyone in a favorable way, with the intention of providing the best possible well-being to the object of my affection, which is ultimately everything. And as a byproduct of that, I will be free from separate motives, separateness, seeing myself as a separate agenda in connection to the rest of the world. And naturally, I will be free from all these efforts, alienated, isolated efforts, gyan, karma, and all this type of things, trying to reach things by my own effort exclusively, like if God doesn't exist, like if I'm separated from everyone else. So all the things put together by someone in practice speak to us, okay, that person is a pure devotee. We may not have the eye or the time to be inspecting every single person who is a pure devotee, but we should first ask ourselves where I am in relation to that. And the more I try to align myself to that principle, the more I will be able to find that around me, outside of me, inside of me, everywhere. That's the reply that is coming today by Saint Francis inspiration. So I hope that helps, Badra.
Very much. Wonderful, Maharaj. Every
Okay.
word resonates. Actually, your words reminded me of a Bible quote. I don't know the full thing, but the letter of the law as opposed to the spirit of the law.
Yeah, the letter of the law and the spirit of the law you mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
your words just now describe in answer to my question reminded me of that Bible quote.
No, thank you. Thank you for that reminder. It's an important way of speaking about that. Celestia Marshall will say form and substance. It's another way of saying the same thing. And yeah, there are so many ways we can still become trapped in externals and miss what's going on internally, what's going on in the invisible inner core of things. So we are called to look in that direction only, mostly at least. Yeah. Thank you. We'll continue with the next offering presentation by Gayatri from Texas. So please, Gayatri, welcome.
Pranams, Maharaj, lots of love to you and everybody always here in this Sangha. Such a beautiful way to start our days. I'm going to step back and marvel first at the interconnectivity, the kind of magic that goes on in our processes. You'll understand here, given my question in a moment, is directly linked to the preamble that you gave on the fly to our Q&A today. I've shared with Maharaj before that each week I kind of challenge myself to, in my readings, in my experience, in my practice, my sadhana, to arrive at some question that would be relevant to ask at our ISTAGOSTHI. It kind of helps me keep my process on track, and whether or not I actually speak up and ask that question, it just keeps me going forward here. So this week I've been listening to your retreat. Forgive me, I don't know where it was. You guys are traveling the globe so quickly these days. But the retreat on reclaiming our ideals with Jay Jagannath and others. Yeah, so beautiful, so inspiring, a great series. I always have to listen to each episode a couple of times to make sure I feel like I've soaked up all that I can and then move on to the next one here. So even just in the opening piece of that retreat, you're right, Jay Jagannath, bringing up and all of you all speaking about the importance of the questions and how the questions, guide the quest here. Perhaps too, it's a bit of my own process at the moment as I get back into the classroom and teach here at the university. But the importance of questions to the quest. So the first thing I wanted to just say today is thank you for always answering our questions. You do a marvelous job on our meetup here. And then even I see you on social media answering random questions on the fly, or what may not be random, I don't know. But I get inspiration as I just hit Instagram for a moment in the middle of the day to just break things up here. So very, very grateful for all the different ways in which you take the same. I know for me, one of the questions that's been super helpful along the way, and a single question that I've focused on for many years, is just the simple question, who am I? And a very deep question. A lot of writings or Q&A from Ramana Maharishi, right down in South India over time, that really talked about that being the essential question for self-inquiry. And even you guys at the retreat reminding us that right, asking the questions is a essential part of sadhana as well too. That question, right, helping me unravel the ego and just, start to dive deep into all that we are along the way. I hope you don't mind. My question today actually has to do with turning the tables a bit here in an effort for us to get to know you in a more personal way, given your textbook as well too. I'm just really curious about what question or questions have either been, right, if you can prioritize, super important to your quest along the way, and or at this point in time, what kind of question or questions do you ask yourself or of those around you? Answers can come in from so many different directions. I just thought it would be kind of a fun exercise here, if you don't mind sharing that with us. Does that make sense?
It does.
It's from my heart.
Gayatri.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm saying thank you. So, of course, first of all, humbled by your sweet appreciation, and I know it comes sincerely. So, I'm taking it from that place, and it's moving and humbling and inspiring. So, thank you. And yes, that series and that retreat we did at Michigan was one of the many highlights of the year. Of course, I don't want to downplay the rest of the year, because if I start to think in detail, oh, that was a highlight, this also was a highlight, but that was a very special gathering. Of course, it was the second retreat we did with that particular combo, so to say. The year before also we had a retreat, a radical personalism retreat, so to say, in Michigan with Deva Madhava Prabhu also, and with Jai Jagannath. Now Ujjwal joined the forces to the team, and many others, because it was really very participatory, although not everything came recorded there, because there was, apart from the very profound circle of sharing, where some of us were chosen, so to say, or offered ourselves to share our life journey and certain questions that came and prompted, so to say, or ignited a further quest, and so on and so forth, in so many stages. So, so regarding your question, which questions have been relevant for me in my journey, or are relevant for me at the present moment, or I may like to extend to others. And you yourself referred to your own, so to say, big question for a long time: who am I? And sorry if it sounds like I'm plagiarizing you here, but that's also my question, because I think that should be our question always, because there's never one same answer to that same question. And for me, this is very important. For example, in the famous conversation in our tradition between Srila Sanatana Goswami and Mahaprabhu. So it's a back and forth. It's an ISTAGOSTHI, basically, and the whole foundation of our tradition is presented there by a series of questions presented by Sanatana Goswami and answered by Mahaprabhu. And the very first thing that Sanatana Goswami asks is Kiyami. In Bengali, Kiyami means, who am I? This is Sanatana Goswami, right? This is not Bhakta Jeff coming to his first Sunday feast, wanting to have an idea, a grasp on reality. This is Sanatana Goswami. In one sense, he knows who he is. He is who he is. But at the same time, and again, now I'm going to the third book I wrote, still on process, but there we are talking about the soul and the soul's ever-evolving potential. So my point is, if the soul has ever-evolving potential, in one sense, the soul is always expanding in bhakti. Who we are is expanding in bhakti. So the answer to who we are is similarly expanding in bhakti. So strictly speaking, we could ask, who am I? every single day of our life for eternity, and there will always be something else to say. So I just wanted to, I will go to other questions, but I just want to nail this point, because again, some of us may be quite dismissive in the sense of, oh, I already know that answer. No, I'm spirit soul. Next question. You are losing so much, but dismissing questions at early times, so to say. And these are questions not to be ever dismissed, as we are talking about. Again, who is Krishna? Do you think that you can just define God in a conclusive way and nothing else can be said after that? That goes against the very nature of the infinite. So that's the second question. Who am I? Ever-evolving question, ever-evolving answer. Who is the divine? Ever-evolving question, ever-evolving answer. Which is my relationship with God? Ever-evolving question, ever-evolving answer. I'm not saying with this you shouldn't be asking any other questions, but you should understand that these very big, quote-unquote, basic foundational inquiries are perpetual. No, the nature of the answer to the question is ever expanding. So even in the Lila, the devotees will be asking, who is Krishna? It's not that they don't know Krishna, but you can know him. As Richard Rohr said once, I really like that line. He said, when we are saying all the things, it doesn't mean that you cannot know God. It means that you can know him endlessly. So we are talking about God as mystery. When we are talking, you cannot never say enough about God. When we say, don't think you already got him, doesn't mean that you cannot understand Krishna. It means that you can understand him infinitely. So there's always a place to ask again, who is Krishna? Because as Chaitanya Charitamrita said, at every moment Krishna becomes more beautiful. And the name Krishna means what? The most beautiful, right? The all attractive. But the all attractive becomes more attractive at every nanosecond. So Krishna becomes more Krishna at every moment. Krishna becomes Krishnaized at every second. So you can never say, I already know Krishna, but Krishna became more Krishna the next second. The all attractive become more attractive. So there is a further quest now to honor that new upgraded beauty. So there will be a corresponding question to that quest. And that happens at every second, at every moment. So I think my point with this is, I think to stay with these foundational questions and to understand the ever-evolving nature of them sets a very good precedent to what's happening eternally, to what's the standard in the spiritual world, where everyone continues to ask those same questions, same, quote unquote, at every moment, and there's always a new answer. So better we become accustomed to going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper in the same question than just dismissing these questions quickly and wanting higher and higher and higher questions, quote unquote, higher. So that will be part of my answer, probably the main part of my answer. Who am I? And who is Krishna? Who is the divine? Because again, the last years, I will say, I'm still working, and probably I will be still working forever on integrating this sense of uncertainty, a healthy sense of uncertainty about who Krishna is, without maybe becoming too nervous, too uncomfortable about that, because it's so easy to run toward the land of certainty. It's so easy to bring closure to all these questions instead of disclosure, instead of keeping the question updatable, open. So yeah, who am I? That's a daily question. Who am I? And also, the daily question is like, what's going on with me today? What's going on inside of me? Because someday we just pass the day without asking that question. Like, we just are in autopilot. And we don't spend a moment to see, like, how are you doing, Swami Padmanabha? And so to say, what's going on inside of me? What's what's the need of the moment also? No? What do I need in my particular chapter? And again, these are perpetual questions because every chapter is different. So what's my necessity in this chapter of my journey? What do I need to embrace deeply? What do I need to let go? What do I need to work with? Another question could be like, in which possible way, and hopefully, again, this without any toxic shame, guilt, or neurosis, but in which way I may be indulging in some form of spiritual bypassing? You know, in which form today that's manifesting? In which form I'm being complacent? Again, not from a neurotic place, but from a healthy place. That question has a very rightful, healthy place to be asked. If we don't ask this question from a healthy place, we cancel the possibility of introspection and change and transformation, and we just become, stagnant. So that will be a question also. Like, how can I relate? How can I relate to other people in a more authentic way? I guess some people may say, no, Maharaj, you're already doing so, you're so nice. And I'll say, sorry, but there's always room for improvement. I'm not canceling, I don't want to cancel your words, but there's always room for improvement. So I don't want to stop to cancel the room for improvement. I don't want, again, complacent can be, you can be doing pretty well with something. You can be a very nice person or very good in anything. And especially because of that, you may just become complacent eventually and lose sight that even no matter how good you are, there's always room for improvement. All of this without becoming neurotic, right? Because you cannot make all improvement possible in one day. So even if you try to make as much improvement as you can today, tomorrow there will be more room for improvement. So what's the room for improvement today, September 14th, 2024? A realistic, relatable, sustainable room for improvement that I can embrace today. That will show me which is the room for improvement tomorrow. I shouldn't think about that in one sense. I just can't think today. And presence is a big question also. No, how can I be more present? Or sometimes the question is more like, in which ways I'm not present? How present I was. Sometimes the questions are more like at the end of the day, so to say, questions like how present I was today, and looking back and doing some inventory, so to say, right? Yeah, of course, sometimes there are more specific questions or philosophical questions or Siddhantic questions or research questions in writing. I'm doing stuff like that. But yeah, those are like a separate category of questions, no? And of course, especially these days, this question had been there, no? Like, okay, where I am standing in terms of, my relationship with Krishna, Radha and Krishna, Gaur Gadadhar, Gaur Nitai, everyone, how to make that more passionate in a healthy way, more human, more transparent, more spontaneous, more natural, more deep, more serious, serious in terms of inner seriousness, no? How? Again, it doesn't mean that nothing of that has happened, but what's next? What's next? Yeah. Yeah, that's what I can come up with for now. I don't know if that helps.
It does. So beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing what comes from your heart as well too, and reminding us that the questions are right in and of themselves ever evolving, the Q and the A here. I think that's a unique piece that comes through a lot of your writing, and so important. So thank you. It also, right, I don't know, you guys were talking about a ball game, right? A baseball game in the retreat as well too. It feels like it levels the playing field, right? Or for me, knowing that the questions you have are similar to the questions I have as well too, and we likely all of us have. Really beautiful, just anchoring into that space as well too. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question. Okay, we have Swetadut Radhika or Amanda Bikram. I don't know who of the two raised the digital hand.
Yeah.
I think I suspect who, but I'll give you the chance to.
Yes, always me. At least until now. Yeah, so my question may be somewhat related to your first book, but I don't know. So I was thinking the jivas, like this was my understanding that jivas are either influenced by the material energy or the spiritual energy, not like both or something. But I'm thinking maybe like when we start practicing bhakti, then it could be that we are sometimes influenced by material energy and sometimes by spiritual, something like that. I'm not sure. Like I'm just questioning this now. That is it possible? Because I mean, just my own case, I'm thinking probably I'm like heavily influenced by material energy a lot. Like I'm not sure, but I was reading this part of Muchikunda in Krishna book recently, where Lord Krishna gives him the benediction that he wouldn't be influenced by the modes of material nature or material energy anymore. And he would be practicing devotion like his next birth, something like that. So I was thinking then, like, okay, for him to practice devotion, then he's not influenced by the material modes, just the spiritual energy or something like that. So just trying to understand, you know, if we are practicing bhakti, even though, like, you know, it seems like we are under the influence of material energy, what is it really like? You know, is it like a mix of both?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, of course, it's a good question. Another good question to ask. A few things come to mind. We should begin saying, of course, that bhakti is nirguna. So bhakti in itself is the essence of the Swarup Shakti that I write about in my first book. And Swarup Shakti is unaffected by the gunas, let's put it that way. And that's why Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Daibihiyasya gunamai mamamaya duratayam amevaya prapadyante mayamitam taramtite. Now, if one is affected by the gunas and one wants to transcend their influence, one should surrender unto me. And of course, surrender unto Krishna is, we are talking about bhakti whenever we say surrender unto God. So the implication is Krishna is beyond the gunas, bhakti is beyond the gunas. We are not beyond the gunas. So if we want to be beyond the gunas, we have to contact that which is beyond the gunas, or he or she who are beyond the gunas. And that's bhakti, Radha and Krishna, and so on. So bhakti is nirguna. Bhakti in itself is the internal energy of Bhagavan, but there is no influence of the gunas there. So now one can say, okay, but Maharaj, I'm practicing bhakti, but I think I'm not beyond the gunas. So what's going on there? How to think of that situation? Is there, as you say, is there a mixed presence of both bhakti and gunas, speaking one way, or what's happening? And we will say again, bhakti is nirguna, right? Bhakti is beyond the gunas. So as much as I contact bhakti, I'm beyond the gunas. That's by principle. If I'm, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita also, Mahatmanas tumam partam daibim prakritim ashritaha. Right? He defines his devotees as those who take shelter in his inner energy, no, in his divine energy, daibim prakriti, divine nature, which means Swarup Shakti, Bhakti. So as much proportionately, let's put it that way, because it's not black and white, proportionately to how much we take shelter in Bhakti, and that can vary at different moments, and that's my point, we will be beyond the gunas at that moment at least. Then we are not beyond the gunas. That means at that moment we are not that shelter in bhakti, let's put it that way. And we know by practical experience, sometimes we really enter into the shelter bhakti, into the shelter of the main practices of bhakti, to the spirit of bhakti. And when we are able to enter into that place, we feel, we feel the gunas less, or we don't feel them at all. There is place for that. I assume all of you have had some experience like that. What it means to be beyond the gunas. Now then the gunas come back at some point. So that means that our embrace of bhakti is not the same. No? And this again, not to make anyone neurotic, not to chastise, just realistic. That's part of the journey. As I always quote Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describing in Madhurya Kamini the 9 stages of bhakti. And he will talk about anishtita bhajana kriya, or unstable practice of bhakti, of bhajan. And he will describe all the things that one is more embarrassing than the other, so to say. Right? These 6 stages, Utsahamayi, Buddha Vikalpa, Ghanatarala, Niyama, Akshama, Tarangarangini, and so on. But all of them are part of the bhakti journey. So they are confirming you're on the bhakti path, but also they are showing that still you are not that much putting yourself under the light of bhakti. Now, sometimes we may need to use an analogy here. So let's use the analogy of the sun, which is the one used by one of many uses used by Rupa Goswami. They started kirtan here in the back, so I may be struggling with listening to myself, to you, and everything else. But again, it's bhakti coming in the form of the chanting. The example of the sun. So the sun is coming. For example, now I'm in a room. Sorry, I cannot give you today such a fancy background as the one I had in Switzerland. We do the best we can. But I'm in a room and the sun is entering the room, and you can see this side, in this particular side, you see more the light of the sun. So I'm exposed to the sun partially, and proportionately to my exposure, I'm experiencing light. You are seeing me in light, but I'm not fully exposed to the sun at this precise moment. So if I will go to the building and just face the sun, that's a different level of potency. The sun is always the sun, but the degree of my exposure, that makes the whole difference in terms of my experience of the sun. What if I enter into a cave where there are no doors and windows? It will be total darkness. Sun is still there shining 108%. No? So bhakti is that sun, which is nirguna, which is fully light. There is no darkness, so to say. There is no shadow in it. But how much I'm exposing myself to bhakti, that will vary at times. And proportionate to that, I will be experiencing more the presence of the non-sun, so to say, the gunas, the shadow, whatever word you want to use. So again, in this moment, I'm receiving the sun, by my experience of the sun is filtered by walls, by curtain here, but the sun is the sun. So bhakti is nirguna, bhakti is the sun, it's full sun. But sometimes we expose ourselves to bhakti still through some filters, whatever it is, separateness, fear, this tendency, that tendency. Still the sun is coming, but in some degree. Still the sun is super powerful, 100% enlightened, but I'm putting those filters. I'm depriving myself of full exposure to the sun. So as much as I become aware of that, and I make a conscious effort to, again, be as naked as possible in front of the sun, to allow myself fully the experience of darshan, of being seen as much as I can, without filters, without masks, and of course, that's a gradual process. It's not that I press the button and all masks disappeared and I'm like, generally doesn't happen that way. It happened to St. Francis for whatever reason. We already talked about that. But it's a gradual process of learning ourselves to trust the sun, so to say. Now, Krishna is described as a sun, Bhakti is described as a sun, full sun. But sometimes we trust more shadow than the sun, trust more darkness, are more familiar with darkness than with light. So it's a gradual process of trusting the sun, trusting the lights, exposing ourselves more and more. But bhakti is bhakti again. For example, in the Bhagavatam, you will find this definition of sattviki bhakti, rajasi bhakti, tamasi bhakti, and different subcategories of those. So the translation of these 3 things literally is sattvic bhakti, rajasic bhakti, tamasic bhakti. And one may say, but that contradicts all you've said so far, Maharaj, because you say bhakti is nirguna, it's beyond sattva, rajas, tamas. So how come there be rajasic bhakti and so on, tamasic bhakti? So the commentators, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in particular, he's quick to comment like, no, bhakti is nirguna. We speak in terms of tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic in relation to our disposition, to our filters, to how we appear in front of the sun, continuing with the analogy. How I present myself in front of the sun. When there is mostly a tamasic filter, that will be tamasic bhakti. Not that because bhakti is tamasic, but because I am tamasic and I'm practicing bhakti, being tamasic. There's people who worship God so someone else can die. This is extremely unusual, hopefully for you, but this can happen. I will ask God for something bad happening to other people about, and this gives that example as among others. Say that's tamasic bhakti, right? Bhakti means worship God, but with a violent desire, something not compassionate, which of course is not what we are talking about here. But somehow the person is addressing God. As Krishna is saying, the different people approach me, which means different people approach me, they come with different ideas about bhakti, with different approaches, with different notions, who I am, what they can get from me, what do they want. Krishna says, I receive them all, and gradually we are trying to work the case, like carve properly the situation. But yeah, ultimately bhakti is nirguna. It's beyond the gunas, not affected, but we are affected. And the more we expose ourselves to bhakti, the less affected we are by the gunas. But that's a gradual process. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur will comment in one verse of the Bhagavatam that I quote in Radical Personalism, which is another way of speaking about this, which is the Saraka Deha and the Siddha Deha, right? You have the Siddha Deha, the spiritual body that eventually manifests when you attain siddhi or perfection. But now as a sadhaka, he says, the sadhaka deha is a mixture of a material body and a spiritual body, because it's your material body in the process of being spiritualized by bhakti. So there still is like a mixed situation, because one has not yet fully, again, exposed oneself to the full presence and influence of the sun of bhakti, of the sun of Prem, of Krishna. So there is a presence of one thing and there's a presence of another. Like here now, there's a presence of light, there's a presence of darkness. It's not the full sun coming. The two of them are present simultaneously. But it doesn't mean that the light became diminished by darkness. It's just that I'm not exposing myself fully to the source of light. When I do so, sun remains 24/7 open doors, so to say, in its enlightening capacity. So that's the same for bhakti. So the rest is our part, no? How much, that's sadhana, no? How much on a daily basis I'm exposing myself to the sun of bhakti, how much I'm making myself visible. Again, it's all, let's go back to the first pillar of the seven of Tadatmya, vulnerability. It's another way of speaking about vulnerability, all this. How much do I'm showing up? How much do I'm exposing myself? How much do I'm allowing myself to be seen? And again, it's not black and white. It's not yes or no. There are degrees of that, as there are degrees of light coming in here now, and degrees of shadow also. There are some clouds also here I'm seeing. So there are a few factors in between me and the sun. But if I will have the capacity to go even beyond the clouds, to take a spaceship, so to say, and live in the sun planet, that's 24/7 day there. It's day, it's light, it's fire. So that's what bhakti is about, the fire of passionate devotion, the light that sheds light on everything in its proper light. Sorry to repeat the word so many times. And which burns whatever needs to be burned in the process of that. Yeah. I hope that helps. Did Radhika, any thoughts? Something else?
Yes, Maharaj, that's really clear. I really like the analogy of the sun. That's helpful to think about it that way.
Yeah.
Especially in Ireland, that's very, I mean, very much our daily meditation, always searching for the sun.
Yeah, yeah. But also remember, Krishna is Ganashyam, or dark cloud. So you're in a very cloudy section of the planet Earth. Those of you in the UK, that's the Udipana for you there, right? Udipana means the stimulant. So Maheshwar, Anurag, Jamuna, Manjwali, Svetadevradika, Mandavikram, Karuneshwari. You have, that's your cloudy Krishna. No? For others, it will be sunny Krishna. We can use different analogies. At the end of the day, yeah, we have to be reminded of Krishna one way or another, right? Verse says, Smartavyasa Tam Vishnu Smart. Somehow or other, always think about Krishna. Whether the analogies helps the cloud, the sun, the moon, he's Krishna Chandra. I mean, he's all of the things. So we can just resort to any word. That's why Mahaprabhu always says, he said, every word from the alphabet is first of all a name of Krishna. Then it indicates something else. That was Mahaprabhu's lesson, Sanskrit lesson, after he got initiated by Ishwar Puri. He returned to his classes and he started to give these unusual Sanskrit lessons, teaching everyone. Every Sanskrit word is first the name of Krishna. Then it speaks about man, car, leg, cloud. First, it all speaks about Krishna. Then something else. But first consideration, cloud, sun, Krishna, Krishna. So that's an important point he's making there. Yeah. Okay. I have 10 more minutes approx because actually I have another class here. So we will go to the last raised hand. Rasangi.
Haribol, Haribol. I just wanted to say that I just read recently from Govinda Lilamrita that the sun is actually a manifestation of the burning of separation of Radha and Krishna. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I mean, to talk about everything being connected and coming from that.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing.
Yeah, like
anyway.
it is also say there, sorry to interrupt, like in Golok Vrindavan, it doesn't rain, but the clouds are crying. No, it's not raining. There's crying there. So in the same way, any single aspect of nature will be seen from this emotional perspective, because Vrindavan is a land of bhava, no? It's a land of emotion. It's not the land made of earth, water, fire either. I mean, all those things are there, but they are made of emotion. So yeah, it's very poetic at the same time, because poetry is the natural language there. No, that's why Brahma Samhita say, Golok, every word is song, and every step is dance. No? So every word is song is another way of saying every word is poetry. Everything is poetry. Everything is enchanted there. It's an enchanted land, an enchanted world. So, and again, we can start to live there here if we have the eyes to see, and if we can see the clouds in that way. We can see the sun. We can see everything with that new perspective.
Personally,
yeah,
emanating from the divine.
Yeah, radical personalism.
Yes. So Maharaj, I wanted to just reflect on something you said in chapter 11, issues and tissues, the guru.
Chapter 11, okay, of radical personalism. Okay.
You know, you talk about this Srimad Bhagavatam 9, 4, 63 through 68.
Yes.
And this is a definition of a pure devotee, I guess. Being absolutely uninterested in material affairs and even liberation, and as controlling God by the strength of their love. That's so powerful. That's like a crazy powerful way to look at who's who. You know what I mean? What's a pure devotee and what does that really mean? So I love that so much. And I was thinking that in order to counteract the constructs that I've been indoctrinated with, maybe lifetime after lifetime, I have to come to experience things with a different lens or from a different place. Like, and I was thinking maybe it's more about really hearing more clearly what people are saying and where they're coming from, and then seeing where it hits me, how I react, or what is I'm experiencing as I'm hearing it, right?
Mhm.
So when I'm hearing someone, I mean, there's so many kind of people dressed as holy people, let's say, whose lives are just not reflecting that. And it's easy to be fooled because we're told to offer respects and this is what it looks like. So I'm just thinking about a different way to experience things where I'm more true to what is and not the old paradigm or the old rules and regs. And I feel trapped a little bit by all the things that I've learned, that I've been following and supposedly being true to in order to get Krishna's grace. And now kind of deconstructing that so that I can be more real, more authentic, and get more in touch with really what is, not what it just looks like or what it's supposed to be. And the other thing is that what I'm experiencing is that when I'm chanting my japa, I'm bringing myself as I am. It's like, which is odd. It's odd for me to do that, except when I was maybe younger and a seeker, and I had all this emotion and passion, to understand who God is. And being a devotee, I was following the prescription and just hearing the holy name and thinking about Krishna's pastimes. But right now, it's like I can't do that as much. I'm more experiencing emotions and what's real in my life. And I'm going through some stuff. So it's weird to bring that to Krishna, to japa. It just feels weird. And yet, in a way, it feels like finally some authenticity is coming, that I'm being real. And when they say we have to cry for Krishna, what does that mean? Like, what am I going to cry for? I can't experience that, but I can cry for what I'm experiencing and for help or guidance or insight or mercy, I guess. Oh, that's what I got today.
Welcome, Rasangi. Welcome again to the circle. The more vulnerable you are, like you're doing, the more access you have to the essence of what we're about here all together. So thank you. Thank you. And remember, please, whatever you are going through, whatever you are feeling, whatever is your current struggle, journey, unlearning, don't make it singular. It's not only you, it's our unlearning, our pain, our crying, in the sense of we are all going through similar things in different ways, but we are not that different. So I think it's always healthy if I'm having a pain, it's not only my pain, it is my pain, but it's our pain also. No? So I'm not alone in my individual experience that sometimes can feel very lonely, can feel very much, I'm going through this only. And it's a collective journey, no? Individual, but collective as well. So, and I will say what you are going through is, and you tell me, of course, if I'm absolutely wrong, I'm absolutely open to that. But yeah, whatever you're going through is what you need to be going through. It's not something that shouldn't be happening. It's the right moment for this to happen. If it didn't happen before, because it didn't have to happen. And there is this great temptation when we look back at how we did things in the past, and we feel like, oh, there was indoctrination, or there was fanaticism, or there was narrow-mindedness, and I raise my hand to all that. Don't think that I'm just started day one in the temple speaking about radical personalism. And it doesn't mean that because I'm speaking about it now, I have nothing to learn in this area either. No? So it's a learning curve. And probably for many years, we were in a very, how to say, limited template, but we didn't feel it as a limited template. It's because probably we needed to go through that. That was okay for us. No? So we will have to be very careful not to fall into the temptation of like resenting the past, or like not accepting that we needed that in one way or another. And it's okay, because if not, it's a subtle way of condemning ourselves for having gone through that in the past. And we are not accepting what happened. We are not accepting ourselves going through that. I'm not saying that's your case. I'm just talking in general. It's a potential temptation for everyone. So I think it's important that when we look back and look all the messy stuff, immature stuff, even happening a few years ago, stuff that still gets triggered in our own minds, and we can see like, oh my gosh, still all the samskars are pretty alive. But I can see them, and I needed to go through that so I can now see them. If I haven't gone through that, I couldn't see them because I didn't go through that. So that was the purpose there. That was part of the journey. We have to accept the journey, all the chapters of the journey. And I would say that helps us to also accept more where we are now, because where we are now is a result of the past. Now, where we been, what the choices we made, all that put together somehow is who we are now. So if I somehow not fully accepting all that happened in the past, somehow I'm not fully accepting who am I in the present as a result of my past. So I think it's important that we all make peace with our past. I'm not saying that we may not need to heal stuff. Of course we need, but that's in the present. And healing begins by accepting what needs to be healed first. No? And that was part of my life. I cannot delete that, erase that from the timeline. And yeah. And then, yeah, let's offer Krishna whatever is relevant for us in this moment. If there are messy emotions, ups and downs, tears coming because of that, that's our most authentic offering. He will prefer that way more than just, I will memorize one chapter from the Bhagavad Gita and will offer that to Krishna like an autopilot mode. Because I've seen that also happening. Like just, okay, by me reciting this series of verses every day, Krishna will be pleased. I don't know. Let's see from which place you are doing it. So the question, again, going back to the question about questions, the daily question is, what's the most authentic thing I can offer today to Krishna? Or in other words, what's the most authentic way to offer myself to Krishna today? Because I am the thing to be offered, ultimately. No? So if the offering comes in one form, that's the form. No? As long as it feels that you are not betraying yourself, that you are doing exactly the opposite, and that's the offering. That's the daily meal that Krishna is waiting for. He's waiting at the table for the daily meal, no? But he wants a genuine one, not one that gives him indigestion. No? So it has to be a pure organic meal. No? And the pure organic means authentic, sincere, transparent. No? That's the organic thing. No? If not, we will just give him Monsanto stuff. No? Our masks, our fears, our calculation, our separateness, our performing, our showing who we are not. That's just throwing on him Monsanto stuff, and it's like, no, GMO. No, that's not healthy for Krishna's stomach. Let's take care of Krishna's belly. Let's put that name to the new campaign. Protecting Krishna's belly. We don't want him to have an indigestion. We want to bring him the most organic, pure, sincere, transparent offering we can of our own selves. So that's it. That's the best we can do. No need to judge that, to measure that, to compare and say that's not so elevated, that shouldn't be happening. I should be more ecstatic than what I am. Again, Krishna doesn't care for that. Krishna cares for how honest you can be today. And if you are as honest as you can today, ecstasy takes care of itself, so to say. All that high stuff will come of its own accord. Well, as long as we are being honest and sincere. That's the real concern. Not so much where is ecstasy coming, why it's not coming. That's not so much a concern we should have. It's how honest I can be today, knowing that everything else, whatever that everything else needs to be, will come as long and as much I'm being vulnerable, transparent, sincere, honest. That's sadhu, as Krishna says. No? No matter how messy you are so far, if you are sincere in your attempt of giving your heart to me once again today, as honest as you can, you are my sadhu. And that's then we go back to those verses of the Bhagavatam you mentioned, Canto 9, Chapter 4, verse 63 to 68, which is one of the most beautiful sections of the Bhagavatam. We have a lecture about them a few years ago, and Krishna speaks about his devotees there. How he, and the sadhus, he used the word sadhu, how his sadhus are his heart is theirs, their heart is his, and so on and so forth. He's controlled by them. But sadhus, again, doesn't mean a super pure, extraordinary person. It's just utterly honest. Prabhupada translates satam in the Bhagavatam as utterly honest people. And so Prabhupada, Krishna wants us to be utterly honest. Whatever that form it takes external, that's secondary. The external shape of our honesty, that's secondary. Krishna doesn't see that. Krishna is seeing the inner presentation of the heart. So I hope that helps, Rasangi. Thank you for bringing us these important points of reflection for all of us, not only for you, but for all of us. And again, instilling us to further responsibility, vulnerability. So that's it. To Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Harinam Prabhu ki jai, Sri Gaur Gadadhar Gaur Nityananda ki jai, Sri Radha Mohan Radha Govinda Dev Radha Gopinath Ji ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanand Hari Bo. Vancha Kalpataru Vischa Kripa Sindhu